Week 28 Overview: The Etruscans and the Founding of Rome. Let's kick off this unit with the birth of Rome. It had some pretty humble beginnings for an empire that ruled the known world. Let's start with geography. If you've been making salt maps this year, you know the value they bring in helping kids notice detail. If you haven't made a salt map before, Italy's a great place to start. It's perfect for a three-dimensional medium, and we have weeks to trace the growth of Rome's influence from one little dot on the map to most of the known world. Ask your children to show you any maps they're working on, whether they make them out of paper or salt dough. Our lesson this week starts before Rome is even a dot on the map, though. The early history of Rome begins with the Etruscans. The Etruscans were a sophisticated culture when the people we call Romans were simple Latin tribesmen in a small group of farming villages of huts near the Tiber River. Meanwhile, somewhere in the west of Turkey, the Etruscans developed advanced art and architecture, including intricate mosaics and breakthroughs in the use of arches. Other civilizations had discovered how to use arches in tunnels or other underground structures, but the Etruscans were the first to use them above ground. Before this advance, roofs and doorways were built by laying a beam across two pillars. The structure was limited by the strength of the crosspiece, which is a problem when you're building with brittle materials like stone. You can snap a slab of stone pretty easily, but it's almost impossible to crush a well-supported stone by pushing down on it. Arches bear weight on stones that support each other. That's why stone arches are so strong. We don't know much for sure about Rome's earliest days. The Romans were more interested in telling great stories about their origins than they were in preserving exact accounts. According to Roman legend, the city was founded in 753 BC by two brothers, Romulus and Remus. Their mother was supposedly the daughter of a king whose evil brother took the throne and forced his niece to become a Vestal virgin to keep her from having children who might challenge his right to rule. The Romans claimed that the god Mars was the father of her twin sons, Romulus and Remus. The usurping uncle exiled the mother and floated her babies down the Tiber River in a basket. According to the legend, Romulus and Remus were discovered by a she-wolf, which nursed them like puppies. They were raised by a simple shepherd couple. When the boys grew up, they killed their evil uncle and put their grandfather back on his throne. Then they set out to found their own city, but they quarreled, and Romulus killed Remus. Romulus became the first of 7 kings of Rome. The settlers of Romulus's new city were fugitives of every description, debtors, runaway servants, and worse. The men of the city had a problem, though. Nobody was willing to let them marry their daughters. The Romans kidnapped the women from the neighboring Sabine tribe. We don't tell your kids about this part. This led to war, which only ended when Romulus agreed to share his throne with the king of the Sabines, whose heirs allegedly ruled Rome for the next several generations. After Romulus and 3 Sabine kings, the Etruscans ruled Rome. At this point in the story, we move from legend to something a little more like history. There was a Greek noble who moved to Rome with his Etruscan wife, called Lucius Tarquinius Priscus, or Tarquin the Elder. He became more and more influential and somehow seized the throne in 616 BC. He reigned more than 30 years, but was murdered. His son-in-law, Servius Tullius, then took the throne. It isn't exactly clear where Servius came from. He might have been born Etruscan, or he might have been a Latin slave who was born into the Etruscan household of the queen and later adopted by her husband. As Rome's 6th king, he arranged for his 2 daughters, who were both called Tullia, to marry 2 brothers. These brothers were either the sons or grandsons of the Priscus, the previous king. Unfortunately, this was one of the most disastrous arranged marriages in history. One of the 2 Tullias fell in love with her sister's husband, named Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, Tarquin the Proud. Tullia No. 1 and Tarquin the Proud killed Tullia No. 2 and the little brother. The murderers then married each other, and to top it all off, Tarquin killed old King Servius, and Tullia deliberately drove over her father's corpse in a chariot. Tarquin the Proud took the throne as Rome's 7th and final king. Tullia II and Tarquin the Proud had an equally despicable son named Sextus, who ended the reign of the kings. Sextus raped a married woman named Lucretia. She responded as a virtuous Roman noblewoman would. After making her father and husband and their friends promise to punish her attacker, she stabbed herself to death in front of them. The men avenged her death, overthrowing Tarquin, who went into exile. Sextus fled the city, but he was assassinated by old enemies. The monarchy was ended, and Rome became a republic in 509 BC. That was the end of the Roman monarchy. Rome became the world's first republic in 509. The 7 kings of Rome, in order, according to legend, were Romulus, Numa Pompilius, Tullus Hostilius, Ancus Marcius, Lucius Tarquinius Priscus, or Tarquin the Elder, Servius Tullius, and Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, or Tarquin the Proud. Your kids won't be expected to know about these 7 kings in detail, but they should understand why Rome went from a monarchy to the republic. If you have young children, your wife may be planning to use a book called Brave Cloelia. The time was shortly after the founding of the Roman Republic. Tarquin the Proud had been driven out of Rome, but the Etruscan king, Larth Porcina, had declared war on Rome to get him back his throne. The Etruscans beat Rome in a battle and took a number of hostages and other prisoners back to their camp near the river Tiber. Cloelia was one of the Roman girls who were handed over as hostages, but she never gave up her will for freedom. She gathered together the other girls and made a break for the river. They plunged into the water amidst a rain of spears and swam safely across the Tiber. The Etruscan king was furious at this and demanded Cloelia's return. He didn't care about the other girls who got away. She was the only one he cared about. But this girl who had aroused his wrath aroused his admiration, too. He realized that she was braver than all his other Roman enemies. The king told the Romans that he would attack them again as truce breakers if they did not honor their treaty, but he promised to give Cloelia back to them unharmed if the Romans would return his hostage. When Cloelia returned to the Etruscan camp, the king praised her in front of all the people. He told her that not only could she go back to Rome, she could pick out half of all the hostages to go with her. They brought the hostages to her, and Cloelia set the boys free. She knew they were the ones the Etruscans would kill because they were more dangerous enemies. The story ended happily. Larth Porcina ended his war with Rome, which stayed free of the tyrant Tarquin the Proud. The Romans rewarded Cloelia's act of courage with a new kind of honor. They set up a statue of a girl on horseback at the head of the Via Sacra, the sacred way. But enough about politics. Let's talk about religion. As we shall see in the next few weeks, the Romans were great at conquering and ruling, but they weren't very creative in their own right. They didn't come up with a lot of their own idols, for instance. Rome had its own traditional religion, which we'll study next week, but most of the gods they worshipped were imports. Here's a quick list of Greek gods they took over. Apollo, god of light and poetry, who kept the same name when he came to Rome. Athena, goddess of war and wisdom, became Rome's Minerva. Eros, god of love, turned into Cupid. Hermes, the Greek messenger of the gods, turned into Mercury. Aphrodite, the Greek goddess of love, became Rome's Venus. Ares, god of war in Greece, became Mars in Rome. Hera, protector of marriage and women, sister and wife of Zeus, became Juno, the wife of Jupiter, king of the gods of Rome. The Greek Cronus, father of Zeus, was Saturn in Rome. Poseidon, Greek god of the sea and earthquakes, was Neptune to the Romans. This assimilation of the Greek gods was another aspect of Rome's secret for success in ruling the world. Rome didn't really care what a person worshipped, as long as they paid their taxes and obeyed Rome's laws. By the end of this unit, Unit 4, we'll see what an opportunity and a challenge this Roman attitude towards religion was for the first Christians. We're a long way from there, though, right now. Rome is just a dot on the map at this time, and Jerusalem is still under Persian rule. We're still 5 centuries away from the New Testament, but we're getting closer every week.